Hey everybody, it's Tanya here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be creating a watercolor flower, and it's a step-by-step tutorial that you can easily follow along with. I'm going to share with you my favorite setup, my different materials, the way that I like to work with the watercolor ink, and the whole process from beginning to end. And it is shot in pretty much all real time. Now, I did shoot this over the course of a few days, but you don't need that much time. You can actually do this in an afternoon if you like. I also really encourage you to pull out whatever materials you have and play along. Now, are you going to get the exact same thing that I got? Nope. But that's okay, because the whole point of this is that it is intuitive, and this is an exercise to really help you create, to enjoy the process, and to allow the beautiful magic of colors and inspiration to take over and pull you into a moment where you lose time and you just feel really great about what you are creating. Now, the video itself comes from a place where I was feeling very overwhelmed and anxious and going through a bout of depression. And if you'd like to hear a little bit more about my personal story and see a time lapse of this painting, then you can check out that video up here. For today, what I'd like to do is invite you to play along or paint along. And if you're looking to create with the same materials I've got, you can check that out in the description. But don't let that stop you. If you have other watercolor ink brands or watercolors themselves, or hey, even if you've just got crayons, it doesn't matter. The whole point of this is to allow yourself to tap into that intuitive knowing that you have inside and just let it flow. Let the colors come out, create something that gives you a bit of inspiration and lifts you up. And it's remarkable what can happen when we take our mind out of the way and just let the heart and the feelings come forward. So that's what we're going to do today. And I hope you enjoy it. So grab yourself a cup of something if you're going to watch and just enjoy the vibes, or get your materials ready and let's go. It's my collection of watercolor inks. You don't need this brand. You don't need these colors. You can just use whatever you've got. If you want to play, I would suggest getting your basic primaries. You get your red, you get your red, your yellow, and your blue, folks. Yeah, basic kit works perfect. And then you can create other colors. And then as you go along, you can start to get more of what you really gravitate towards. Obviously, for me, it's pink and orange and some of the purples. So all of that said, now why is this covered in ink blots? Well, because I'm a little spazzy, in fact, almost literally spastic sometimes. And I did all of these watercolor trials and had so much fun and created these and thought, oh, these are beautiful. They inspire me. Those would be pretty framed. And then my hands kind of went a little bit crazy and the ink went everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. But this is what I've got. And they're inspiring me to do something more fun, more colorful. I really like that one. And so what's come out of it at the end are a few pieces that didn't get splats, but this one in particular, this one really making me happy. It's something about the way that these colors are. I want to see if I can do this in a larger scale. So today I'm using my own work as an inspiration, and I'm really getting the feeling of floral, but also heaviness, which honestly suits my mood. I just got that just now. Just really, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like there's so much beauty, color, and wonderful things going on, but we all have this sense of heaviness, like the shoe's going to drop or something heavy, but yet there's that beauty to hold on to. Look at me work out my own metaphor today. Please remember when doing these types of playing exercises, and this is also maybe a note to self right here, don't get stressed out and have a feeling of tightness and stress in the back of your mind that it's not good enough, that it's not going to be sellable if you're a professional and wanting to sell your work, that it's not going to look exactly like the reference, or that it's not, catch that? Let's just see what we can do by playing and having fun and mixing colors together. That's really what this is about today. If this painting works out, I'm going to be very excited. If it doesn't, that's okay too, because I had this moment of playing, and that for me is where the joy is. That's why I got into doing watercolors in the first place, so I could let go of my perfectionistic ways. Anyhow, the point of my rambling here today is that I would really love for you to join me and play along and just have fun, or watch it and enjoy the process, and let's see what we get. Okay, obviously I have a little bit of stuff to clear out of the way, but I did want to share to remind you, if you have an old desk or a desk that you love. Now mine's an old antique, and yes, I use it for painting on, and no, I'm not too worried about the surface because it is literally cracked right through the center, bing bing, but I don't mind because I love it. It has character. And I digress. Point was, protect your surfaces. This is an old cutting board, works really great. It's plastic. This is a huge sheet of plywood that I got from the lumber yard as an offcut, really cheap, but a smooth surface I use for my paintings, and also a really good idea to have. But if you've got an old sheet or some surface that you can protect your table with, please use it, because the ink is water-based but also very strong. And even though I am using a 300 weight paper, if you are using something that's a different paper or surface to play with your watercolor ink on, it can leak through. That was a long-winded way to say, hey, protect your surface. Okay, let's get this cleaned off and let's get started. All right, I'm just going to give you a high shot for a moment so you can see that I've just put my ink sort of around the periphery, and I'm going to be opening and closing them as I go along because I don't want to dump them all again. But I'm going to, let's bring this camera down. So what I've got is a 10 by 10 sheet of watercolor paper. If you're new to doing watercolors, I highly suggest getting a paper that is a medium price. The lower price papers are not going to do you any justice. They're going to buckle the paper, the ink won't hold properly. But if you are just doing a bunch of testing and playing until you really get the hang of watercolor ink, if that's what you want to use, then try something like Canson XL. It's a very good paper for the price point. And if you haven't seen my other videos talking about it, because they use a sizing that's not as expensive as the, like Arches or Heritage brand or Strathmore or any of the 100% cotton other papers that you can get, it tends to create a surface where the ink doesn't get absorbed so quickly. And in some of the work I do, because I use a lot of water and I want the time for colors to mix together, I like that. If you don't, and you are somebody who has done a bit more work and you're used to a different kind of paper, then by all means use that. But if you're just starting out and you're checking this out because you've seen these things around and you're like, what are these all about, and do I want to invest the money in these, because they can be upwards of $15 a piece, and it's a lot for one color if you don't know what you want. So yeah, it's good for playing. Anyhow, 10 by 10 sheet. What I want to do is get a bunch of water down. Now again, this is my inspiration today because I love the colors. They make me happy. And I'm not going to draw it out. What I'm going to do is just free form it, which is part of the beauty of working in this medium, because we're going to use a lot of water. No going in that your paper is going to buckle. No going in that things are going to shift. The colors are going to look completely different when they dry. They will lose that uber vibrant color saturation when you first put them down. Why am I not taping this down? Because I like the freedom of lifting up my page and moving it around. So that's my choice. If you like to have things taped off, you want a beautiful white edge, or you're just more comfortable with that, do whatever works. Got some inexpensive brushes. I don't remember where I got. They're synthetic. These are great because these inks do stain. So be mindful, especially the blue colors. The blue and the yellows will stain. So you don't want to use your good watercolor brushes for this. I also have a ceramic plate. Got this from the dollar store for $2.99. Always a better way to go for me personally is ceramic. This is my tale of internet bad purchases. These were supposed to be ceramic, but they are plastic. Now, do you see how the water dries in little beads? I don't personally like that. Some people don't care. These are excellent because they're stackable and they come with a little cover, so it actually keeps your paint dry, or wet, I mean. But yeah, find something that works for you. Okay, so I'm just going to move this so I don't get water all over it, because me. And I'm going to, now you don't have to mix up colors on your mixing plate or palette or whatever beforehand. I'm just doing it because I'm doing a larger piece and I want to have a bit of control. And see, already my fingers are stained from handling the ink. I'm going to start with a cool pink because I love this color. It's very, very subtle. And this for me is almost like a placeholder, I think is the best way to say it. So I can see where I'm putting things, but I'm not going to have so much color that I can't play. Now, the big factor when working with watercolor ink is they love to blend or push and pull each other, depending on which colors you're using, on a damp surface. As soon as the surface dries, you're going to get a hard edge, right? So you can see here, there's this beautiful subtlety, ombre effect almost. That's because the paper was damp when I put the ink down. When you put it down on top of another color that's dried or on the paper, you get a hard edge. So that's the difference really. Other than that, it's pretty free-form intuitive. There's not a lot of planning required. Okay, so what I want to kind of create a big shape, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what I want just yet. So I think I'm just going to block out something. And I'm going to use this very, very light pink. I'm hoping that it shows on camera. Kind of like a guide to just see where the color is. And I'm putting down a lot of water, but not puddles. The less water, the darker the color will go. The more water, the more it will disperse. And I'm just kind of creating a big shape that kind of looks like it's going to fall over in a second. That's sort of where I'm going with this. All right, I think it would be best to grab this camera and show you what the water is looking like. Okay, so you can see the shape that I've created, kind of like that. Uber wet, right? And then you can see on that edge where it's starting to dry up a bit, where it's damp. So that's what the difference is. Now, because I want this to be a flower, I'm going to start here. You can see the paper is already buckling. Let's use that intentionally and know that the color is going to pool. So when I drop that color, it's going to pool here and go whoosh like that. Let's see what happens. Okay, here comes the fun time, the play time. Now I'm going to use that same cool pink because I don't want to go too dark just yet till I see what's going to happen. But let's see. Okay, there we go, starting to move around. Now, I want to see a little bit more on my edges, so I'm just going to drop edges like that. And we're going to get some pretty colors playing around. Beautiful. Now, I also really love the push-pull of pink and blue, because what happens is when it dries, you get this kind of an effect, almost like an outline. So I'm going to come in with my brush, and I'm going to mix up a tiny little bit of blue, see what goes on. Now, also, you can see this is kabluebird on my end here. That's okay. Normally, I would go and fix that, but I think today I kind of want to leave it. I'm really feeling like I want to just experiment with things a bit. So what I'm going to do is grab a little bit of this blue. This is very, very pigmented. One little drop is going to go a long, long way. So you see, you got a lot of water happening here. Watch. Right? Very strong. And I don't want that strong. I want just a subtle bit. So I'm going to try and get my brush wet, pull it up here, and then I'm just going to go on some of these edges here. Now this is already dried, so I'm going to swoop it down like that. Again, there's no right or wrong. We are just playing. If I put blue on the pink, what's going to happen? They are going to push and pull each other, and they might turn a little purple where they mix. Depends on how much color there is. I'm just going to give that a little mixy mix. Okay, and then give it a little swoosh because I like that color. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit of orangey peach color. And what's going to happen is it's going to mix with some of what's already happening. And we have to know, not full color theory, but basic color theory. If we add an orange to a blue, it's going to go a little brown, a little muddy. So I'm going to try and avoid that area and instead think eventually this will be petals, and I want those edges to be showing. Where would my light source be coming from? If the light is hitting it this way, then the top is going to be lighter than the bottom. If the light is hitting it straight on, the center will be light, the edges will be dark. And that's kind of where I'm feeling it. So I'm going to maybe just stay to the periphery. So I'm going to try it, because again, this is playtime, right? I'm going to try it and see what happens and let it do its thing. Okay, I love it there. And I'm going to put some here because I like those colors. And I am going to make some mud right there. Okay, and you see how that orange and the blue are moving rapidly. That's because there is different density of pigment. The viscosity of the liquid is a little different, and the two of them together are doing a push-pull in the water, and that's how you get this movement and these beautiful colors. So now comes the hardest thing of all, the hardest thing you're going to have to do all day. Are you ready? You ready? Walk away. Walk away and let it dry. Because if we get in there and we start mucking around and mixing it, then things can get very muddy very quickly. Like that, okay? So we're gonna let that dry and then come back and play some more. Okay, it's about an hour later. For the most part, this has dried up. There's a bit of moisture here and here, and I actually want to leave that because I'm going to use this to kind of mock up where I would like the stem to be. So I'm just going to grab some liquid and pretend that I know what I'm doing. So maybe we'd have a stem kind of like that, and then something like that. And I think this stem would probably be more droopy. I'm going to just kind of do that with the blue. And then I'm going to load up my brush with a lot of this blue, and then I'm going to dip this brush into the water, not drag it onto the edges. And I'm just going to give it a swirly. So there's a lot of pigment on here still, but lots of water. And I'm going to put in another petal. Now, I love when flowers look like they're kind of ready to open. So I think I'm going to do kind of something like that. And then just fill that in like that. Maybe bring that right to the end. And I'm going to intentionally put a lot of water in here so that it gives me some nice pools with the pigment. And I'm going to, this is one of my favorite things, get the brush wet. And you're going to take off the excess, and you can use your fingers or a piece of paper towel or a reusable cloth and take the excess water off. And I'm going to use it almost like a sponge and just roll it through the center, because again, I kind of want to pretend like the light is coming this way. So where is that light going to hit if it's shining straight in the middle? Now you see how quickly that has stained the paper. The blue pigments are very, very strong in the ink. So keep that in mind when you're playing. Dilute it if you're not feeling super confident about where things are going. And otherwise, don't worry about it. Now I'm going to put a little bit here, just to pretend like we've got a bit of shadow happening under, and maybe down the center. And then it's gonna whirl and swirl and jump into the other zones, and that's okay. I like that. Feeling like that, maybe it's an okay proportion. I love that it's kind of feeling very heavy, but also suspended, the shape, close to the edge. Just has that weight to it, which was kind of what I wanted to do. Now, again, does it look exactly like this? No, but that's okay. References are just that, you know, to give you a general idea. And then we play, and we don't have expectations about what we're going to get. And that's the best way to do it with the inks, because it gives it a very natural and organic feeling. It doesn't feel forced. And the point of this is to give a sense of freedom and inspiration, and perhaps to tell a little bit of a story. And that's what we're doing with that now. Okay, we're gonna let this dry again and then come back. We are on day 2. I left this to dry nice and crispy for the next day, and I love that this has that feeling of transparency, and I'm not going to alter that too much. And I do want to share that if you see this is normal. Sometimes the colors blend and you don't get the beautiful waves and lines that you've seen. Also, I used a lot of water, but I wanted this done intentionally because my idea is to have sort of a darker area and hopefully be able to pull these tones out. And yeah, all we can do is continue on and see how this goes. So let's grab the paints and get going. Okay, I'm going to start with a very wet brush, little ASMR moment. Put that by my mic. I just want a little bit of blue, not too much. And what I'm trying to do is I'm going to push into this pink that's here, and hopefully the blue will push the ink a little bit and I'll get an interesting sort of an outlined kind of effect, but we'll see what happens. So when I first put it on, it's wet on the dry, and as it starts to soak into the water and into the ink, we'll get a little bit of a push, not too much though. This is also going to create a nice wet space for me so that I can put other colors in and on top. Now, if you wanted to do another petal up in here so you have that sort of transparent effect, you could do that as well. But you know, whatever floats your boats, kids. I kind of like the idea of maybe that, you know, coming out of the bottom here. Actually, you know what? I think I will. I'm feeling like, why not? Let's just play. So you can see here, we've got some movement in color. Here, we've got a bit of movement in color. Not so much the pink, so what I'm going to do is do a little different. I'm going to put the blue in here. Again, there's no right or wrong. There's just playtime. Whee! Playtime making shapes. Okay, I'm going to let that be. And now, here comes the fun part. So what I was really enjoying about this was these sort of salmony pink tones, a little bit of purpley happening here. Let's pull out some more of these pink and orange tones and see what we can get up to. So one that I really love is this 236. It's a tangerine color. It's not really orange, it's not really pink, it's kind of in between, and it has this wonderful ability to push pigment. It really loves to, if there was other color, it often pushes it out of the way. So I quite like that. Now what I'm going to do also is sometimes you can leave them, and sometimes you can get in there and actually use this color, and that's what I want to do here. I just want to pull it up into the other area. See, it's how it's going almost like a green, you see? Now, I've got a little bit of a bloop in the water, so I'm just going to grab a bit of towel here and just pull that off. No biggie. Now, this is part of why I wanted to keep this untaped, because now I can get in here and actually move the paint. And you see the orange and the blue are mixing, and we're getting kind of a browny orange color, which for me, I like that idea of either it's a brand new bud or it's kind of a little old and decaying a little bit. And, you know, just fun to play and see what you get up to. Also, can you see how the pigment is getting pushed around by that orange? Neat, hey? All right, let's speed this up and you can watch all the colors going down. Now you can see there's a bunch of layers and we're starting to get some really interesting things happening. Now that I've got a bunch of color down, what I decided to do was swirl it around a little bit, and then I've propped it up so it intentionally pools in these places. And then just before it dries, I'm going to grab my brush and just move it around a little bit. Now that's dried up for about 20 minutes or so. And you can see that the colors have shifted a little bit again, but we're getting some really nice blending color effects. Some things are starting to shine through, and I'm going to continue on with that. At this point, this area here is still a little damp to the touch, and then this is where things start to get really fun. If I put a watered down color, it tends to push the ink around and push it out to the end like that, and you can get this really interesting sort of flow situation, the broccoli effect, which a lot of artists hate, but I love, and because it gives it that sensation of water, which I really love. And that's where we can start layering these colors in here. I put damp clear wash on everything, and now what I'm going to do is drop in a little bit of color, and I really want to get that kind of a salmon pink situation going here, so I'm going to put in a little bit of this beautiful pinky magenta, but not full strength because this is incredibly strong color. So I'm just going to dilute it on my mixing plate with a really, really wet brush. Okay, and then just dip the top in, and let's see what kind of color we get. Oh no, maybe it doesn't want to spread too much. Let's see. It's going very red, but I like it. Beautiful. Now we're getting a really amazing saturation of color. Remember, they do dry a little bit lighter. Again, my reference photo. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of blue here and see if that's going to give me a bit of an effect on here. Sometimes I like to just do little droplets just to see. That's interesting, and it'll just spread naturally by itself. And I want this because this is going to be sort of that coarse area, you know, that covers the bud, just a little bit of there. So yeah, really just playing around. And remember that it's always nice to have a contrast, right? So this one was very blue-green. Nice to have that contrast of the pink and the yellow, and vice versa for this guy up here. When that's dry again completely, I think I'm going to come in and do a little something here because this is very washed out. So from a distance, it will look like two big flowers, but I want it to be a little more cohesive and just be the one. Well, here we are on day 2 or day 3, I've forgotten. I put this aside for a while I was working on other things. Came home and looked at it and thought, wow, look at these colors. This is so beautiful. And it really looks to me almost like a poppy that's about to burst open. And so I'm going with it. That's what I'm going to do. So I think today I'm just going to add another sort of a roughly kind of petal happening in here. Going to try and leave some light in the center still. And that's it. I think it's pretty close to being done. So I'm excited to finish, and I just want to share a reminder that if it takes you a few days or you have to put things away and come back to them, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to finish everything all at once. It doesn't mean we did it wrong. It just means we're taking our time. So in a non-rushing kind of way, let's create some pretty flowers and see what happens. A very, very wet brush, and I'm actually going to paint the section that I want the ink to flow through, and then I'm going to add the ink and let it slide down. So I'm going to actually invert this. Oh, so pretty. Another thing I want to say, do you know that you don't have to have an upside and a downside on your paintings? If you don't like them a certain way, it's always amazing what happens if you turn them sideways. You get the most incredible things. So I'm just creating a lot of water, as per usual. I don't want it to go all the way into the white, so I'm just going to create almost like some veiny areas that go down. And then I'm going to start with my lighter pink, which is the 390, this cool pink. Let's see what happens. I'm excited. It might just stay in one zone. Woo! Is it wrong to get this excited by your paints? I don't think so. I think not. Oh, it's gorgeous. Okay, I have a little air bubble situation. I'm just going to pat that out. Oh, they're doing it for themselves. Boop. That's really pretty. I could leave it, or I could just be me and do this and then come back down. I also have water coming down to this area, so I'm going to just tip it ever so slightly and put it back to the center, tip it again, and just a little bit more. I think somehow I missed this area. That's okay. I'm just going to push the ink down ever so slightly. Okay. Beautiful. And I think I want to add just a little bit more color. This is the 361. This is more of a magenta tone, but without being too fuchsia, if that makes sense. Okay. Now this one is not pushing out for two reasons. First off, we've already got some ink down and it's taken over some of the surface area. Secondly, the density of this particular one is a little bit different. So I'm just going to give it a little helping hand and let it do its thing. And that's enough there. Now, having an organic flow is beautiful, but sometimes if the color isn't going where you want, you just have to tilt it around a bit. If I'm finding that a little too dark, and I kind of am because everything else is very soft and gentle. Got the brush wet, give it a pull. Again, if you've got a reusable cloth or some toilet paper or whatever you got kicking around, you can just do that. And what I'm going to do is just put the brush in here and let it soak up some of the color like a sponge. I love what's happening here, but here it just feels like it's too stuck. And then here, I just want it to come out ever so slightly. Just to take that really, really hard edge off. And in fact, just letting it do this, because again, I want to have that feeling that there's going to be almost like, now if we turned it, I can't turn it, to feel almost like there's a bit of a shadow happening underneath. And I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and then I'm going to come in with a purple. I got a new purple since I started doing this, and I'm excited to play with that a little bit, see what it does. Okay, there. Clean off my brush. I don't suggest using your fingers with some of the pigments. You have to look up which ones are a little more toxic and just be mindful of that. Yeah. Okay. That's really pretty. I'm going to just put a drop of the purple right in the very end. Oh, let's show you what it is. This is 548 Blue Violet. But there you go. Now you know. It's gorgeous. Look at this color. It's too much. Ah! That's going in the blooper reel. I'm just going to blot it before it gets too out of control. There's going to be a spot, nothing I can do. Poop, poop, poop the root. That's okay. It's a Tim gun, make it work moment. Fortunately, there's already purple in here, so I can get in there. This paper is a little more forgive the camera shake, I'm blotting it really hard. This paper is a little bit more forgiving than some of the very expensive cottons. I think I said that at the beginning of the video. Sometimes when you make a mistake like this, you can actually get in there very quick and it's not a staining color, and you can blot it off. See, that came off not too badly. I might extend this a little bit, but I mean, considering I just dropped ink on there, not bad. Once that dries off the end, then I can come in and put some more pigment. But for now, I will leave it where the pigment will go into the area I don't want it to. Let's try this again. Take 2. There we go. Oh, she's really dark, and quite intense color, which I don't mind. Now again, as gorgeous as that is looking right now, remember that some of the darker colors, when they dry, will even out and go very flat. In this case, I don't mind that that happened, but here I don't really want a big flat area. So what I'm going to do is pull some of the ink out, spread it around a little bit, and then just have, you know, like I love this feathering thing that's happening. So we'll do a little more of that. Okay, so the same situation where I've wet this brush, cleaned it off, and then pulled off anything extra, and I'm going to use this almost like a sponge. Gotta love those sound effects. Gotta love those sound effects. And then I'm just going to tap it in to some of the areas where I want to see it. See how this has got that bit of white? I'm going to leave that. I quit farting around and putting things where I don't want to. And then I'm going to just do a little purple. The secret to getting a beautiful effect and a lot of depth is by layering the colors and letting them dry into different areas. So this is already dry, this is damp, but you see how we get the color separating in different areas and starting to overlay, so that from a distance this will look very much like an actual petal, and the way that the light is curving around the surface of it. So it's like creating an optical illusion a little bit. So here is quite dry, and I'm going to putting this color here, and then going to come in with a little bit of water on the end, just to take that edge off. So this is putting wet on dry, this is wet on wet, and then coming in with a damp brush and just grabbing those edges and allowing it to feather in. Okay, that's looking quite pretty. Now, my instinct is I want to do more, but also I know if I rush through, I'm not going to get the beautiful effects that I really want to see. I also really love that there's this little bit of orangey peach color happening. And I would like to have a little bit more of that, maybe in here, just for some more depth. I'm going to grab this beautiful orangey peach color. It's 381. And I'm going to dilute it, because if I put it on straight, it's going to be too dark, even though it's a very, very sheer light color. Hello, kitty cat. Cat came to say hello. Now, there's still a damp area here. You can't see it. But I'm going to drop this in there, and there you go. I don't know how much that's going to show, with very little bit on the camera. Okay. And I think that's pretty, but everything else is very fluid, very organic. So I would like to let that dry a little and then take the edges out. Same technique I did here. Get my brush clean, take off the excess water, and then I'm going to run my brush just on the very edge, just to get rid of any harsh lines. So this way there's a very subtle differentiation between the white and sort of the peach color. I think I want a little bit more, just all, it's like the slightest blush, but it really does help create a beautiful effect. And your mind goes, oh, interesting texture, and starts to fill in the blanks. And that's one of the beautiful things about painting and why everybody sees things differently. Your mind will fill in what it wants to see. Meanwhile, over here, this is starting to create a pool, and I just want to move it around a little bit because I still want those darker tips. And this is still damp from before, so I can put some on the edge and it will naturally begin to shift around. So really play, see what works for you. Do it intuitively like I did. I didn't plan this before starting today. I had a general idea, kind of, sort of what I wanted to do, but that was it. And I think that's part of why this is a really fun medium for being intuitive, because it allows you to just play with the color and see what the color wants to do, and then come in and alter it a little bit. Now, I would love to put a tiny bit of yellow in here, because yellow and purple are complementary colors, meaning that they will neutralize each other. So if you're painting with either of those colors and you need a shadow, mixing the two of them together is wonderful. But I want just a little bit of color here. Now, if you remember from before, when we did a bit of yellow, it pushed a lot of the pigment out. So I'm going to be very mindful not to use too much. I'm going to use the bright yellow. That's just 205. And same thing, I'm going to just dilute it. There we go. That's what I wanted. Just very subtle, just a shift in color a little bit, you know? There. Gorgeous. More depth, more visual interest, more colors for your mind's eye to say, ooh, what's happening over there? Now, do you see how that pushed the ink that was already there? And it's giving me this great edge. I love it. This is a new discovery. I didn't know that that was going to happen. I just thought I was going to get a really beautiful shadow, but this is actually proving to be a fun little experiment. I like it. I like a little bit of that yellow showing here. I love that it's creating this edge for me because that looks like petals. I feel like there's going to have to be something coming through the center. So I'm actually going to use the yellow as a base. And it's just going to pull these colors in here. Almost like that. Yeah, it's better. This happened by itself. That's perfect. It's exactly what I was going for, and it did it by itself. Love that. Happy time. Now the test is, once it dries, to put it up somewhere and take a big step back, because visually what you're seeing up close, you're going to get really into all of the details and the beauty of it. And then you step back and you're like, oh, that's not what I thought I was painting at all. And that can be a lot of fun, or it can really detract you from what you were doing. So take some time. I mean, you can do this in an afternoon. It does dry quite quickly. And if you have the luxury of time to play and let it sit for a day, that works too. Okay, so you can see how much water I have going on there, and that these pools of water are still doing their whirly swirly. You can see where the yellow pushed the ink around a bit. We've got that gorgeous effect happening. And there's that little spot. And I'm going to fix that simply by adding a little bit of water around it and a tiny little bit of diluted purple and letting it flow and do its thing. So I've got a semi-wet brush. The areas that I am sliding into, the purple will spread, so you need to remember that. And then 548, Going to dilute that down. Otherwise, it's going to go very, very dark. Do you see how beautiful that purple has changed once it starts to dry? It is actually, you can see the blue violet of it, so it's quite gorgeous. Okay, here we go. We're just going to do this and let it bleed into the water a little bit. That's it. Now, if I leave it like that, I'm going to get a very hard edge. So again, my favorite, clean your brush, wipe it off, get around those edges to give them a soft, feathered feeling. And that's it, really. I'm going to let that dry for about 10 minutes and then come back and add a little bit more ink just around this area, because right now my paper is curved this way. So it will pool over here. So when this part that we just did dries, then I can lift my paper up so the ink runs into that spot. Right, so that's propped up now. And I'm going to add a little bit of that wash that I had closer to where the dot is. This is still damp here. And then I'll just grab some of the ink straight up, I think. Okay. So that it looks intentional. The intentional, unintentional. All right, again, leave it, let it do its thing. Maybe I'll let the camera run. We'll do a time lapse. Isn't that fun to watch how it just feathers? Love it. Even though this is propped up and this is lower than this is, it is still creeping up the page. Very beautiful thing about these inks. I absolutely love how they do that. Well, the leaves are budding and the sun is out, and we are almost finished with our gorgeous, what has now turned into a gargantuan poppy bud, and I am so excited by this. It looks incredible. This is what happened with the purple area. So you can't even see where I did the purple spot. A little bit of something right there, but it's not bad. I love how these colors bled into each other. And the only thing that I feel like I would really like to do is this is dried very flat. So what I want to do is dampen it down. I'm going to put a little bit of this purple, try and get this sort of thing, but on the edges. So that means dampening it down, putting a bit of purple, letting the purple fray, and then if needed, putting a tiny bit of that yellow, which will push it back out again. So let's do that. Now I do want to say that I know poppies are quite hairy. They have a lot of texture, especially on the pods and the stem. But because this is an abstract and an instinctual kind of a painting, I'm going to leave it because I think it turned out quite nice. If I add any more color here, it's going to just go more muddy. Right now there's a little bit of differentiation in the color, but that will get lost. So I'm just going to leave it like that. The only other thing I'm not liking is what's happening here, but also nature is not perfect. And I think that looks okay. So really, we're just going to add that little bit here, and I think we're done. Well, this is exciting. Okay, that has dried beautifully, and I'm really, really pleased with how that looks. I think that just really made it. The very, very last thing I want to do is create a tiny bit of depth. I'm going to do the exact same process as this on the stem, just to give it a little bit more depth so it looks a little more three-dimensional. I don't know about you, but I feel a lot better. I think sometimes we really just need to get out of our head, and that is one of the beautiful things about creating art, getting lost in the moment, having that creative inspiration, enjoying the colors and the textures and all of the happy surprises. I think this turned out so beautifully. I am so happy with it. I didn't expect to make a poppy when I started. I had no idea what was going to happen, and I think this turned out really lovely. Well, I hope that inspired you in some small way today, and if it did, please like my video. I'm brand new to YouTube, and it really does help me get a few more eyes on the work that I'm doing. If you didn't know, and I'm going to try to put a video up here. I know I can do it. I can do it. I will put a video up here. So you can do a paint along with me tutorial that I created showing you how I make digital wallpaper from my paintings. It's super easy, and if you are a subscriber to my Art Notes newsletter, you get that free every month as a download. Lots of fun. Anyhow, all of that said, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm really enjoying doing these videos, and I would love to hear from you. I answer all the questions, so please pop a comment below, and I will see you guys in the next video.